immer noch auf dem Event zu World of Warships, zu den französischen Kreuzern. Und jetzt gehe ich zu einem Interview mit wohl dem Typen, der den geilsten Titel aller Zeiten hat. Military Relations Product Manager. Was auch immer das heißen mag, aber es hat auf jeden Fall was damit zu tun, dass er wahrscheinlich jemand ist, der viel recherchiert. Mit dem sprechen wir jetzt mal und lassen uns mal erklären, wie man zu so einem genialen Titel überhaupt kommt und was das eigentlich bedeutet. Okay, thanks for taking the time. Could you quickly introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Kresimir Gusak. I work as a product manager for military relations and I come from Wargaming Paris office.
And you have the greatest title of all times, Military Relations Product Manager. Can you tell us what exactly is that?
Yeah, not a lot of companies actually do come with departments called military relations. So the backbone of our department, the history begins basically with the fact that we at Wargaming, we care very deeply about history and education and the preservation of said history. I mean, it's been one of our core values for ages to come, and it will be. And basically what I do is I facilitate relationships and build partnerships between Wargaming and various historical, military and other governmental organizations and institutions. And then we use those relationships to fulfill our development and or business and or publishing needs. And in exchange, what we usually offer is our support, whether direct or indirect, whether financial or supportive, and our expertise and assistance in acquisition and onboarding of new visitors, for example, from museums.
Yeah, have you done this all the time, or when did you start? When was that point where you said we need to do this completely realistically?
So I joined Wargaming a little bit over 3 years ago, and my department's changed in the past 2 years. But as our company changed and evolved, and as our needs evolved, we had to adapt basically, and so my role was basically created to fit and the work I was doing in the company already beforehand.
And since you spoke about relations, how do you usually go? I mean, do the devs come to you, or do you have the idea for something? How do you contact the right people? How do you do your research?
It's a mixed process. We don't have a strict formula. Most of the times, yes, it's indeed our developers and or publishers coming to us, but sometimes we also have the opportunity and the freedom to pitch an idea. Most of the times, we consider ourselves as the door openers. Basically, we open the doors for other teams from our corporate structure to do what they need to do. So basically for us, for example, it would be the development team from St. Petersburg coming to us and saying, look, we're going to start researching, we're going to start producing the new French cruiser line, we need to get this and this and this. Can you put us in touch with the museums? Can you make sure that we have a warm reception, that we can basically fulfill our needs? And then it's up to me to see how that fits in the corporate plan and structure.
Okay, so it can come from both sides.
Yes, indeed. It's an open process. We at Wargaming, we're relatively agile with everything, and usually everyone has the possibility to pitch an idea and to start a process.
Okay, and the museums and archives, especially because it's military, how easy is it to get into contact?
It varies from nation to nation and location to location. Like most of the museums are relatively individualized, and in some cases they are not. So it's very situational and it's very individual. But most of the times, I mean, we have certain challenges that we face. That for some of these institutions, they're still relatively old school in how they view the games industry, so we still need to explain to them what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve. And the challenges that we usually face is, well, in the name of our company and in what we do is that we are looked upon merely as a producer of war games and not for our portfolio in preservation of history and education. And that's where basically my role kicks in. It's my job to explain that we do much more than just produce video games, that our games are not just a source of entertainment, that also a really good medium for education. Like for example, we have a very good accountability track with the Tank Museum in Bovington, and we have a proven record that people basically, they start playing World of Tanks, they get an interest, they for example play with a Tiger tank, they really like this vehicle, they grow attached to it, they have a sentimental value to it, they read a little bit about it in the game, then they want to see how the real thing looks in reality, so they go to the museum, they read a little bit more, they see a bit more. So we think of our games as basically as a gateway into education.
Like ambassadors for history
lessons. Yeah, precisely.
Because usually history is viewed as something very dry.
Yeah. But we try to adapt adapt history to new audiences. So that's why we're always innovating. Like for example, my department and we at Wargaming, we're also working with virtual reality. Like we're looking into a virtual reality series, and it's really cool for documentaries because you can basically allow people to actually sit on a tank and have a ride in a tank or sit inside. And we're also looking in augmented reality, in animated shows. Like we've been working with, we now have a partnership with a company in US called Extra Credits, and they do really cool animated series that are even befitting for children and younger generations.
Yeah, and when you start researching, a museum might not always have real blueprints, and you are known for catering for every detail. What was the, let's say, the one you had to research the longest from your experience, where you had to find the right blueprints and everything?
So, off the top of my head, I'm not sure I can actually pinpoint a specific warship, but yeah, those things do happen. For example, for some of the French warships, like there was not a lot of paper trace, so we actually had to engage specialists, and we had to do a little bit of guessing game. So we had to work with pyrotechnics experts, with designers, and then large structure designers to figure out how, like if this was indeed done, how it would work and how it would function. So we always try to look for new opportunities. For example, we wouldn't always necessarily look, for example, for French blueprints only in France. Some of them might have been spread out to Britain, etc. Some of them may end up in private collections. The problem with most of with our genre is that we're focused on World War II and then even before, and a lot of the stuff was lost and etc. And it depends on our ingenuity.
So when you find a really great archive, you mentioned that earlier in the press conference, that must be like a dream day, right? I mean,
yeah. So for example, for the French cruiser line, our developers they visited the National Defense Archives in Châteauroux, and they're one of the largest archive collections in the world. And they have, if I'm not mistaken, over 152 square meters of documents there. So if you would line them all up, you would have a tremendous area. And I had a chance to visit once as well myself, and they really have everything from ships of sail to nuclear submarines. So it's a complete treasure hold for anyone dabbling in research, basically.
Yeah, because you mentioned your team. How many people are in your team?
So in my department in Europe, my department, we handle Europe alone, because we try to focus on things from a regional perspective. So for example, it makes more sense if US is covered by a person located in US that has the experience with the culture and the background. So we handle Europe, and in my team currently there's 2 of us.
Okay. So what we also saw at the press conference is how long it takes to build a model. How long does it usually take? I mean, for the French cruisers, for example, if you take the Tier 1 ship, how long did it take you to have everything, the blueprints and all the fine details and everything, so you could give it to the developers and the artists to say, okay, you can create it now?
So we don't track it per individual ship, because the research is rarely done for just one vehicle unless we really need it. Like for example, the Polish ship Leskavica. But for example, for French vehicles, we've known that we wanted to do it actively for nearly 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe slightly off. But yeah, it takes a significant amount of time. Research takes months. Well, just the conceptual stage of building up the tech tree with our team of historians and game balance engineers and producers sitting down and going okay, this is the nation that we can do, and then they outline what could possibly fit where, and then it's basically to structure how we actually do that in terms of research, how much time it's going to take, and yeah, it's a significantly timely process, because we put so much effort on actually making everything historically accurate and reliable.
Yeah, and because World of Warships is so competitive and needs to be balanced perfectly, do you sometimes say, okay, this detail might break the balance because this ship has that feature that might have a problem?
So yeah, sometimes the restrictions of game and game mechanics and gameplay do come in mind, and sometimes we do have to tweak and modify certain things, but we really try not to do that too often, and not to undermine the historical actual accuracy in the aspect of the game. But yeah, unfortunately, sometimes it is indeed necessary.
Okay, thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.